everyone. Welcome to Credential Up Houston. My name is Margaret Fisher. One of the largest professional development organizations in Texas is the Texas Community College Teachers Association, or TCCTA. The president of the association is a former professor and administrator at the Houston Community College. I am delighted that the TCCTA president is joining us in conversation to discuss how TCCTA is fulfilling its mission of excellence in teaching and the advancement of education in the era of COVID-19. President Linda Comte, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Margaret. I'm delighted to be here.
Faculty members are doing in this era of COVID-19, please.
It was difficult, but they, like troopers, like faculty always do, they did it. They turned it around. Many of our faculty had not been trained, not only at HCC, but other colleges, had not been trained on any learning management system, but they got in and learned it, and they had colleagues who helped them learn. As you know, at HCC, we had the virtual faculty lounge. That was a great help to all our faculty who had not done the learning management system before, which I think is Canvas. So, and many of them found a lot of positive things from this. The ones who had not been online before, or those who had taught online, they learned new tools and new presentation tools that they used. Right now, I don't have all those names at hand because there's a variety of them, but and every college, uses different ones. But they picked up a lot of good new skills and felt like there were some projects and presentations that they could do even when they moved back to fully in class. They could have those things as extra curriculum things for them and for the students, and I think they've had some positive experience. And while it's been very negative in a lot of ways, we have as a group focused on the positive sides of these and tried to come away with what worked and what we can take into the future.
Well, when you make reference to some of the negative things, I can only imagine, because all of us have experienced some of those with respect to COVID-19 and the damage that has been done with respect to every single sector. But were there some specifics that the faculty members of the association mentioned to you?
Well, like everybody else, some of them were trying to juggle children at home and going to school. Some of them were facing, just like the general population, family members who were ill with COVID. And so it was the same sort of things for them that it was for everybody else. I mean, they're people, we're people, everybody's out there experiencing the same thing. So they were juggling many things as well. And I think one of the things that was very hard for almost all faculty were that they were very concerned about their students. And so trying to help the students through this, trying to help them through a semester is hard enough. But when you are concerned then about their family situation, their finances, their health, then it becomes a greater concern for faculty. And I did see stress levels go up a great deal in faculty as they, tried to deal with these things.
Well, of course. And one of the things that I've noticed as well, being a faculty member at heart, having taught for quite a number of years also, is that compassion that our colleagues feel for their students and their desire to try to help all of them. And with COVID, it became virtually impossible to assist in all of the ways that we have been trained to be accustomed to. So do you sense now that teachers are becoming more comfortable with the use of the technology?
They are. After almost a year of it, they're getting more comfortable and feeling much better about it. And again, there were those who were already using a lot of it, and they were very good to help those who had not used it as much and to help them become more comfortable. So yeah, I think I tell them now they're experts at pandemic education.
Well, that's surely very, very encouraging for some of them, but there are others who, as you know, are still struggling, who have not been accustomed to some of the training opportunities that you make available through TCCTA and perhaps through some of their institutions as well. So do you think that the faculty members in general are ready to return to a face-to-face physical campus for instruction?
Eventually they will, and they will be happy to do so. Many of them, although they've embraced online, many of them are anxious to go back when they feel safe, not before, but when they feel safe to go back, because there is no substitute in a lot of ways for that personal touch, that personal being together. The theme of our convention this year is strong relationships, why in-person conversation is essential. And when I chose that theme over a year ago, I did not know we were going to have COVID. I was concerned merely because I watched young people today losing the art of conversation because they're always on their phones and they text each other, but they don't talk. And there's some great research out there that shows that they are losing their ability to have really deep conversation and to develop deep relationships through that. And so my thought was that as faculty, how could we help our students return to more conversation in person? How do we help them develop that art of conversation again? But then COVID hit, and it became so much more clear that in person is very, very important, as we have all been so distanced from everybody in our lives. And now it's taken on a new life, actually.
Well, of course it has. And, I'm wondering whether or not you're hearing different messages from rural versus urban and suburban educators. Has there been a difference at all?
Not in their struggles, not so much. I mean, they all had, some people who were tech savvy, some who weren't. They do find in the rural areas, though, that I think for the most part, it was harder to keep attendance up, partly because in the rural areas, they did not have the access to the internet as much. And then some of those students just simply, they couldn't do that and continue to do the work that they needed to do to help support family or whatever. Of course, we had that also in some segments in the urban areas as well, but I think in the rural areas, it was a little more pronounced.
Certainly. Now, we're going to talk just a bit more about the convention that will be coming up, but I really do want to make reference to the TCCTA mission as well, in line with what you have been saying with respect to the excellence in teaching and the advancement of education, and then your rise to the presidency. I'd like for you to just briefly, please tell us about that.
TCCTA is, as you said, we're dedicated to promoting excellence in teaching and to the advancement of education in the colleges. So in the community colleges or junior colleges, technical colleges. And so we offer 4 major professional development, large professional development events in a year. We do the Great Teaching Roundup. We do the Leading from the Middle, the Fall Faculty Leaders Conference, and then our major event, which is in the spring, is the annual convention. And those are the major events. But along the way, we also have webinars and on various topics. We also partner with some various people to create online courses for people to take. So we're always in the mix doing that. And I think, one of the reasons people join TCCTA is for those opportunities, as well as we have very reasonable price liability insurance. But the other thing that we do, and that many of our members participate and are active in, is in our assistance in Austin with policymaking. We are very involved in Austin. We have a strong lobbyist. Our executive director is very active. We have partnerships. We partner with TAC, Texas Association of Community Colleges, and CCAT, the Community College Association of Texas Trustees. We work with them to influence things in Austin.
And that's critically important, and I'd like for us to address that as well. But right now, we're going to take a break, and when we return, we're going to talk about how your previous role in education has influenced your leadership as president of TCCTA and all of the other topics that you mentioned just a moment ago. So please stay with us.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly.
Lights out. Good night.
And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
If a natural disaster shows up at your doorstep, you can't just turn it away. That's why it's important to prepare for emergencies before they show up. Go to ready.gov/plan to find the tools and tips you need. And make a plan today.
Welcome to HTC.
Let me
teach you. Let me help you get college credits.
Let me train you for a new career.
Let me change your life.
Come learn with us.
HCC, for everyone, anytime, anyway.
Welcome back to Credential Up Houston and our discussion with Ms. Linda Comte, President of the Texas Community College Teachers Association. Ms. Comte, in the previous section of the program, in that segment, we were talking about some of the benefits of TCCTA, and I know that you're a strong advocate for faculty members signing up and joining TCCTA because of all of the benefits, and you were mentioning some of those. So I'd like for you to just briefly touch on some of those benefits that you were mentioning in the last segment. And then what I'd like to do is to have you tell us about your previous roles at Houston Community College. You were initially a faculty member and then later an administrator of curriculum innovation. And what I want to know is how you see that now being merged with what we are doing with respect to online education. So please complete your thought that you were sharing earlier about the benefits of TCCTA, please, first.
I think I had left off about our being a strong voice in Austin. And I wanted to give an example of that. If you recall, last legislative session, we had Senate Bill 25, where there was a proposal to reduce the core once again. And that would then allow four-year institutions to be more in control of how transfer worked. When that came out, TCCTA took a very strong stand against that and said, no way, we do not buy that. We are not going to accept it. So the bill was changed so that the wording, and I don't remember the exact wording, but the wording was such then that there was going to be an interim study group and that they would study and make some recommendations. And as it turns out, they have done that. And what we have now that just came out from the coordinating board is a new set of rules for transfer that are very pro community college. So that's one example of how our voice can be heard. We are an organization of around 5,000 members. And so when 5,000 people speak, Austin does listen for the most part. So that's very important to me, that whole aspect of what we do there in terms of the policies that affect community colleges.
And as you were speaking, I was thinking about some of our faculty members who are members. Many of our faculty members are, and they attend the conference on a regular basis as well. And some of them are very active in leadership positions as well. So that is commendable. And so as we now shift just a minute, I'd like to talk about your previous role and how we connect the dots here. And one of the things that you were responsible for was focusing on curriculum innovation with the Curriculum Innovation Center. And that was really quite a benefit to many of our faculty members to teach them to go online and to teach online, in fact, and you were also a faculty member. Now, as we look at instructional design, that's critically important. And as I was doing more research about instructional design, it made reference to a product that the faculty member is going to develop that will also be a wonderful experience for students, both digitally and in terms of the physical environment. And they want it to be efficient, effective, appealing, engaging, and inspiring for the acquisition of knowledge. And that's referred to as the Addie Model. So as we look at that, I know that you did that when you were a faculty member at HCC. I saw all of your evaluations. So how do we now encourage more faculty members, rather than just looking at COVID-19 and then the faculty members going back into the classroom? How do we ensure that with instructional design, as the curricula are being created, that all of those components are included so that you will give that analysis that is necessary to make sure that you're looking at the faculty members who will be teaching, the students you're going to be reaching, but then also looking at the development, the design, the evaluation of what you're going to be giving to our students in the classroom, whether physically or in an online modality. So what are your thoughts about that? How do you make it so that it can be offered in an engaging way, both online as well as in the classroom?
First of all, you're already a long way into it now, because you now have so many more people who have had the experience online who didn't have it before by virtue of having to. But many of them have discovered that it's not as bad as they thought it might be and have discovered positive things. So you have to build off that. You have to take first of all, you're going to have to take those faculty who have always loved technology and allow them to be creative and to be to bring forth ideas and make presentations to their colleagues to show them and to encourage them, because faculty to faculty is the best way to get anything done. And then you've got these faculty who have now discovered that they can do this, and there are things that work for them, and they can see how they work. And so they need to have opportunities in the colleges to be creative and to have opportunity to try things and fail without criticism. That's very difficult because you're always trying to do certain things that you have to accomplish in the classroom. But if you don't allow people to be creative and give them space to work on things and try things, that some are going to be successful, some are not, but that's true in in-person class teaching as well. I mean, there are some activities that work for some classes, some for others, but not everything for everybody. And that's going to be true with online. So I think you build from where you are now. Again, you have a larger cohort of people who are using online. And I think going back now, as the people begin to go back in class, I think having sessions with the faculty and saying, look, guys, what did you get out of this now that's positive, that you feel like you can take forward? And how can we support you in doing that? Because I think they will have a lot of ideas. I think they will be very receptive to that, as long as it's coming from them and not being pushed upon them. I think that you will have a lot of people who would be willing to work in that direction.
You know, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I wonder about the argument then that is being made that the physical location for teaching is better than the online modality. If a faculty member in designing the instructional program uses that Addie model, where that instruction encompasses all of those components that were made reference to earlier, that the students should be able to succeed, whether it's in a physical location or in an online modality. Briefly, what are your thoughts about that?
Like everything, it's not a black and white issue, because there are some students who are never going to thrive in that environment because the technology is daunting to them. They don't feel comfortable behind a screen, and they need the physical contact with humans, and it's never going to be for them. There's an element of students that they're going to thrive in it. And I think we have to be real, and we have to say, not everybody learns the same way, and not everybody can do online and be successful. I don't think that's a realistic thought. I look at like my own granddaughter who, she's in early college, high school, she's 17, and they did all online. And what she said to me is, Grandma, I really like to be in class. And I think you're going to have, not only there are people who are social and they like to be around other people and they learn better that way. On the other hand, you have, again, a large group of people who learn very well online. So I really think we have to be open-minded to say, okay, we really need to do both. We really need to do both.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. And so that means that students need to be a little bit more nimble as well as we prepare them. Otherwise, if there are circumstances that prevent them from going to a campus, at least they can pivot also potentially.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and we'll continue that in just a moment in the next segment. But when we return, Ms. Comte, we will continue that line of thought, because I'd like to hear your comments about that. And then we'll talk about what comes next for TCCTA in the post-COVID era. So please stay with us.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Your blood pressure numbers could change your life. Talk to your doctor about creating a plan that works better for you. Start taking the right steps at manageyourbp.org.
Now I'm, trying to get better, stronger than ever.
The faculty at HCC represents the best of the city. They're committed to getting our students to their goals.
a 4-year degree.
Workforce training. A better life.
HCC, for everyone, anytime, anyway.
Welcome back to Credential Up Houston. We are continuing our discussion with Ms. Linda Comte, president of the Texas Community College Teachers Association. So as we ended the last segment, Ms. Comte, we were talking about students who learn differently, and we recognize that that's the case. Some of the students are field dependent, some are field independent. We recognize that as well. And so as we look at preparing students who may not be as well trained in the technology, how do we now create those student competencies so that they would be able to pivot, even though they might have a preference for face-to-face, a physical location? How can they be nimble enough to pivot if some circumstances prevent being in that space and they have to go online? What are your thoughts about that?
They have to be taught to use the technology. And, I hear all the time how, young people today are technologically savvy, and they are about what they want to do and what they want to learn. But they are not necessarily technologically savvy when it comes to educational platforms. And you have to teach them this. And you have to be patient to say, okay, there are some that no matter what you do, they're going to already know how to do it. But there are going to be a number of them who won't. Just simply like attaching, sending an attachment in Canvas sometimes is, overwhelming for some of them. And we can't assume that because they're a certain age and and they're used to technology that they understand what we're asking them to do. They're savvy in what they like to do, but not necessarily in everything. And so I think we have to be patient. And it's very hard for faculty if they have to be the ones training them in the technology at the same time trying to teach them content. And so it seems to me if we could have some sort of classes for the students where someone would be teaching them the technical parts that they have to learn before they actually are in the class. Now, in a case like we were, where you had to pivot so quickly, that was not possible, but perhaps in the future, non-COVID, you could have some sort of class that students could take to prepare them to get them ready for the technology that they might need or that they might eventually want to need, but not put that on the content faculty person all the time, because that is a double burden. It makes it very hard for faculty to get through their own syllabus if they've got to stop and work with students always in the technical area. I remember, and I go back to my teaching days, and as you know, I was in the intensive English department for most of my career at HCC, and we were early adapters in technology. Mm-hmm. And we used to have students do presentations in PowerPoint, which was new back then. And so we actually would take time to have special sessions for them to learn to use PowerPoint before we ever asked them to do it in class. And we would do it on a Friday in lab where they would come in and that sort of thing. And that would then make it a lot easier for them when you got to that point where they had to do it. So I just think little things like that would be helpful to students. So
yes, you're right. And I really like that. And something perhaps equivalent to a curriculum innovation center for students would be akin to what the faculty members had and to some degree still have in order to prepare those students and to be an area where they could then troubleshoot and ask questions and get support that they need. So that's really, really very good. I really like that suggestion. So now I'd like to say my best regards to Richard Moore, the executive director.
Yes.
He was a tremendous guest on our show last year.
Yes.
You are this year. And based upon your discussions with Mr. Moore and your membership, what comes next for TCCTA?
Well, okay, for TCCTA, first of all, you said after COVID when we spoke earlier, but I want to talk about what comes next before COVID is over. We have our largest event coming up in February, and we have had to go, all of our events have been online, with except your first one, our Great Teaching Roundup, we had to cancel this year. But instead of in lieu of that, we created something called Master Teacher Meetups, where we would have groups of faculty sign up to meet with each other and talk through the semester. We actually went through the year. And we've looked at that and said, that would be something, everybody has enjoyed that so much. We're going to continue that past COVID. And so that's good. The other events were very successful online. This is a huge event. It will be 4 Fridays, the 4 Fridays in February, starting on the 5th. And you know, register for the convention. And for the first time, we are offering registration to people who are non-members who might be interested. You know, we'll have 150 sessions. And so I think it's going to be very exciting. But again, you know, with all of these things, our other online events have been great, but you know, this is a larger event. So we're preparing for it to be great. And I think it will be, but you know, with technology, you have to just be prepared for everything. But I encourage everyone to come. Beyond COVID, what we're thinking is, again, like I said, the master teacher meetups were so popular that we think about continuing those, and also the online things have been successful. So we're thinking that perhaps in the future we may do sort of a hybrid convention so that people can be in person, but for those who can't be in person, at least part of the convention would be online, because a lot of people cannot always travel. And I think that would be very good. Normally in an in-person convention, we have about 1,100 people, which is a fairly large group of people. And people like coming and being together and, you know, fellowshipping and just seeing old friends and all of that, as well as going to these great sessions that we have. But I think we could, you know, we could extend participation by having the hybrid model so that you have at least some of the major events online. So we're talking about that.
Very good. I noticed in the program, which is really very extensive, and it's very impressive also, that Dr. Miller Waters is going to be, in fact, she's one of the chairs over the legislative committee. And we have Mr. Ross as well, David Ross, who is serving on the committee. So HCC is present, HCC is involved, and that's great.
We have a lot of people on committees at HCC.
I know.
I made sure that I got as many on there as I could.
I saw that, bless you. Now tell us about your selection of the speaker. We only have a couple of minutes left. Dr. Chris and the concept of educators as brain changers. And that topic is transformation, teaching and learning, increasing student success across all formats. That sounds to be a very interesting session.
Well, she is a very good speaker. I've only listened to her online, but she has worked in this area of research about the different learning modes and how the brain reacts and responds to these different ways that people, you know, receive education. And while I don't know a lot about her work, I find it fascinating, and she's going to address all of these things. And of course, one of the things she's going to be able to do for us is to talk about the things that you miss online that you get in person, and how you can compensate for those. Because she says definitely the brain responds differently to in-person, online, hybrid, all of those things. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. You know, it fits in with my theme of why in-person conversation is essential. And so, you know, again, I don't know a lot about her research, but she seemed, you know, as we looked at people, she had the background that we thought would speak to a large part of our population with the online. And so it seemed a logical fit.
Well, that sounds marvelous. And, you know, it should be a very, very educational and, of course, informative conference, and just very, very proud of all of the work that you have done and you continue to do. So, Ms. Linda Comte, thank you very much for joining us. We really are very proud of you and your leadership. Congratulations on a great
Thank you so much.
leadership.
I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. And I also thank you, our viewers, for watching. If you're interested in credentialing up, go to hccs.edu/now and take a look at the many certificate and degree options available to you. Again, thank you for joining us. This has been Credential Up Houston. We'll see you again next time.